Good day, everyone. This past weekend, Spectre opened, starring Daniel Craig and Monica Bellucci. It's the most recent James Bond film, and possibly the last that Daniel Craig stars in. Even if you're not a Bond fan, though, you may want to see it just to see Monica Bellucci. This is her right here from the film Milena. I think she would make even a man of faith into a pagan. She would have made a wonderful Wonder Woman in another time. But she is a goddess. Monica Bellucci. But, gotta stay focused. I'm digressing here. Also that week, a comic came out. James Bond by Warren Ellis. And I was looking forward to this book. I found out about it rather late. I think a few weeks before it came out. And so I was quite excited about it. Warren Ellis has a good reputation as a good storyteller. So it was great disappointment when I read this, and he ended up doing something which I thought was impossible to do. He wrote a very bland Bond. He's just a charmless killer. Even the art is lackluster in this book. Now, if you don't want me to tell you what the story's about, then stop watching at this point. And it opens with a man being pursued by someone. He's got a cross on his forehead. He's beaten slowly. And eventually he is shot and killed. And he's shot and killed by 007. The reason he's being killed is he killed Agent 008. And so he's been assassinated by Bond. And that's how we meet him. Now, what we have in the story is we have some kind of drug. It's in London, a synthetic drug. And it's causing either people to self-mutilate themselves, or it's causing strange lesions to appear on the skin. Bond goes to headquarters, meets with Moneypenny, in a really bad dialogue in the story. And he's given new orders. He is to put a stop to this drug importer who is bringing in these drugs, and he's being sent to Germany. And it's 22 pages. A book that cost $4.99. I'm sorry, $3.99. And before he heads out on his mission, some man in some kind of some medical place, he's been given orders to kill Bond. And that's basically it. Very unimpressive in every way. Very disappointing. Now, I was asking a fellow comic book reader, what is Ellis known for? And discussing it with him, basically it's Transmetropolitan, The Planetary, and I think The Authority. But I think those books were written a long time ago. I think Transmetropolitan's from the 90s. And I wonder if he's just overextended himself in recent years, writing various books, and being maybe good at some of them, but maybe in those other books, the three that I mentioned, he was focused on them and doing very little. Writing other things, not writing so much other books, just focusing on them mainly. But this was, anybody could have written this. Now this is in strong contrast to this book here. Mike Grell's James Bond from 1989, Permission to Die. It was a 3-issue series. Well, I think it was. I just have 3 issues of this book. That's volume 1, 2, and 3. Now, Mike Grell, as many of you know, is known for his work on Legion of Superheroes in the 70s, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Warlord, and my personal favorite, John Sable Freelance. So he wrote and drew this storyline here, which is very good. And I'll show you some pages of the story. And I'll, again, compare this to the Ellis book, and certainly the opening of it. And the way it works is there's a dinner party at a U.S. ambassador's home. Some terrorists have taken over. Security and the police is about to just arrive and basically help rescue the hostages. But there's a special guest. Well, there's a guest at this dinner party. And you can see there who the guest is. A woman there is about to take matters into her own hands, but she's stopped by this man. And you can see from here, the man reaches for a knife. He's wearing a kilt. And he goes into action. So we know who it is. Takes him out. Security arrives. The men are taken out. And the woman he was talking to, the woman at his dinner table with him, they share a cigarette, and the woman says to him, "I've often wondered what a Scot wears under his kilt, Mr. Bond, James Bond." And the next page, we see this. Those of you familiar with the films or the books, or basically the films, recognize the characters. Dr. No, Goldfinger, Thunderball, and Her Majesty's Secret Service when Bond gets married. He makes love to the woman from the dinner party. But the woman he's thinking about is his wife, Tracy, who was killed. He gets a call, meets with Moneypenny. And the mission is, and this is what the story is about, in Permission to Die. Again, this is 1989. The Cold War is still... we're still in the Cold War era. Chernobyl has happened, I think, a year or two earlier. Maybe 3. I don't remember, but... And the Berlin Wall is still a few years away from falling. And the story is about an Eastern European dissident who's living in the States now. And this dissident has developed a rocket launch system, which is very inexpensive, and can basically launch satellites and rockets into space at a very inexpensive price. The Americans want to develop Star Wars, and so they would love to have this plan. However, this man, again, who's an Eastern European dissident from the former Czechoslovakia, he won't share this with the Americans. However, he will share it with the British government. But he wants something in return. His niece. His niece is in Hungary, and she has not been allowed to leave. Hungary is still occupied by the Russians. And so the British make a deal with this man. This man says, I'll give you the technology, but you give me my niece. And so James's job is to go and get her. And so what Mike Groh has done with this book, though, as you have already seen, he's referenced the films and the books, and even the likenesses of the characters as they were portrayed by those actors. And so in a way, this is a part of the films and the book. Including his contact is going to be the family of Karim Bey, who appeared in From Russia with Love. From Russia with Love is my favorite Bond film. And it's my understanding that President Kennedy, this was his favorite Bond novel. And this is one of the early editions of From Russia with Love, the British editions. And of course, there's the film version with Sean Connery. And also starring Robert Shaw. And as you remember from the film From Russia with Love, Karim Bey was a Turkish merchant who was really a secret agent for the British government. And he was portrayed by a Mexican actor named Pedro Almendrariz, who was one of Mexico's greatest actors. And during the filming, he discovered he had cancer. And he continued to work on the film, even though he was under an incredible amount of pain. I learned that from watching one night the film, and I think it was Robert Osborne from Turner Classic Movies was discussing this. And so, in any event, he used to meet with his family, and so he travels. He ends up in Hungary, in Budapest. And he meets with gypsies, which again we saw in From Russia with Love. And this woman here, Karim's daughter. And what they're going to help him with is they're going to help him kidnap this girl and get her out of there. So this briefly is, a little bit more here. Still on Mike Groh's art. And Groh's characters, he's like Chaikin. His characters always basically look the same. Certainly the male characters, which is fine, doesn't bother me at all. But regarding romance, which is part of Bond, Groh's really good at. Now, so basically the story is he has to get this girl back, and in exchange the Eastern European scientist is going to give the information to the British. But there's even more to that story, because we learn who this man is, why is he really doing this, and again, the backdrop is the Cold War, the potential for nuclear Armageddon. And what would Woodman do to try to stop basically the end of the world? And this is, of course, several years after Watchmen by Alan Moore. But it's something to keep in mind when you read these books, if you decide to. And that's all I will say. But otherwise, these are some of the books that I have regarding Bond. And this is From Russia with Love. These are the early British editions. Casino Royale. Daniel Craig does portray him very close to these novels. Bond is rather a coarse character, but he is charming, and there is something about him which is he's not a regular guy, as he's portrayed in this Warren Ellis story, the Doctor No. And I think this is a first edition. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it is. With Goldfinger. And this is the James Bond dossier by Kingsley Amis. Amis was a novelist, a British novelist, and his son Martin Amis is now well-regarded novelist as well. But Amis wrote this James Bond dossier where he basically discusses all the novels. Of course, there's Thunderball. Oh, there's Ian Fleming there. On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This film gets a lot of grief because of the actor who played him, and it was the actor whose name I can't remember, and who replaced John Connery when Connery left the franchise. But the film is very good, and the soundtrack is wonderful, and it's a wonderfully sad Bond film. The Man with the Golden Gun. This is one of my favorite Bond films as well. Mainly because of Christopher Lee, which is a figure of him right there. Wonderful movie, and I like Roger Moore. I saw many of those movies when I was a kid in the theater. But in any event, so if you want to read a good Bond comic book, check out the Mike Grell books. They're really cheap. You can find them on the internet, eBay, or somewhere rather inexpensively, and they are well worth it. And then again, he is able to incorporate the films and the books and the likeness of the characters, which may bother some people that he does that. But it works quite well. And unlike Ellis's very disappointing story. Thanks for watching.